Good afternoon. Welcome to this meeting of the Northern Planning Committee. I'm Councillor Paul Wynne, Chairman of the committee. We're not expecting a fire drill today. In the event of an alarm sounding, please leave the building and gather at the front of the building. I'm obliged to inform you that this is a meeting is being live streamed and recorded. But I also ask you please to ensure that mobile phones are switched off and ensure the volume on your laptop is muted. To ensure that the members of this committee and all points raised by the public speakers are properly heard, I must advise you that I will not tolerate any disruptive behaviour. This is a meeting held in public, not a public meeting. And if such behaviour takes place and persists, I will adjourn the meeting. Members should ensure that they are present through the meeting, as you cannot vote on any item if you've not heard all the debate. Can members and officers introduce themselves each time before they speak, so those listening know who is speaking. Now I shall ask the members to introduce themselves, starting. Ted, could you start off, please?
Good afternoon. Councillor Ted Clark for Basin Hill and one or two other places. Basin Hill at the moment.
Councillor Matt Green, Quarry and Coating Hill, and I just declare that I also sit on the town.
Councillor Mike Isherwood for Oswestry West.
Councillor Jeff on Ellesmere.
Councillor Joyce Barrow, Oswald.
Councillor Vincent, Found Manager. Councillor Gary Works, Planning Division, Shrewsbury.
Highways.
Tapperlith Planning and Development Services Manager.
Richard Denson, Senior Planning Officer.
Mike Davies.
Mike Davies, Planning Consultant. Philip Mullen, New Planning Manager.
Mark Jones, Vice Chairman, and Councillor Bickerboyne, Westmoreland and Salatin.
Miranda Garrard, Head of Legal and Democratic Services.
Shelley Davies, Committee Officer.
Thank you very much. Apologies for absence. Apologies have been received from Councillor Ed Towers. Also, David Basmere might not be able to return. He's got personal problems and so on. So, thank you. Item 2, to confirm the minutes held on the 22nd and the 11th of May. Could I propose, please? Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Mark. Questions are received. Any disclosable and pecuniary interests? Okay.
Just to reiterate that as a town councillor on Shrewsbury Town Council, on the planning committee, I will have seen many of these applications, but I have a dispensation to look at them again. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, so we'll go to item 5. The first application. Land adjacent to Church Island Welshpool Road. And Mike, thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Chair. This application is returning to Planning Committee following referral at the 4th of April meeting, which was down to several concerns expressed by members, including alternative access and egress arrangements to be explored, Northwest Relief Road contribution being index linked, design issues, staff parking and footpath provision on Welshpool Road. In terms of progress, the applicant has agreed to the Northwest Relief Road contribution being index linked. Turning to the design, the applicant has bolstered landscaping around the edge of the site with a wildflower meadow being planted on the southern field. The applicant has also agreed to commission a piece of public art on the corner of Welshpool Road and A5 to create a gateway feature to deal with the issues around design in relation to the master plan. Dedicated staff parking will be provided on site, and a footpath along the site frontage with Welshpool Road will be provided to link into the existing footpath network on Welshpool Road. However, National Highways will not support an access directly from the A5 into the site, and as such would not be able to progress that element of what members asked us to look at. The applicant has made strides to address the previous concerns of the committee as far as they're able, and the recommendation is to grant approval subject to conditions. One change to the recommended conditions is condition 16 should be deleted, as it there's issues around it meeting the 6 tests in relation to legal planning conditions. Thank you. Thanks. Do you want to do this? This is the site plan. This site here is topographic. This is the original. This is the topographical representation of the site, which, as you can see, shows the site sloping down towards the southwestern part of the site from the north to the northwestern side from the southeast. So there's a slope there. There's 2 veteran trees in particular which are in the middle of the site, which they basically have made the development of the southern part of the site unattainable because of we can't get access through into that site. The other trees are all peripheral and they will all be retained. This is the actual development itself, and it consists of a petrol filling station to the east, and to the west there's a coffee shop, and that is the subtotal now of the development. This is the master plan that was originally envisaged for the site. What became quite apparent during the sort of negotiations is that the size of the 2 veteran trees in the middle of the site prohibited access into the south of the allocated site, and as such, that's why it's now been left as a wildflower meadow. This is Turncoat Roundabout, and this shows the where the Northwest Relief Road will access the roundabout. What will happen here is, in terms of the access, is that there's an access and egress from Welsh Pool Road. This is the new footpath which has been proposed from the site. There's the issue here in relation to the line there is actually the boundary between what the highway authority controls and what national highways control, and obviously there's no footpath on the A5, so the actual footpath will link in and cross over onto the existing footpath on the Welsh Pool Road, which then links in to the footpath on the far side of Welsh Pool Road. This is the elevations of the petrol filling station itself, and yeah, these are the elevations for the coffee shop. Again, that's just the site layout plan showing out the drainage of the site. As I say, the drainage itself has been dealt with, and there's particular regulations in relation to petrol filling stations where drainage is concerned to ensure that pollution of water courses, etc., does not take place. This is the site looking across the site towards Welsh Pool Road itself, and you can see that these trees are quite spectacular on the within the site, and they're quite large trees, and obviously have a very large root protection area, which effectively renders development within their root protection area unacceptable. And as a result of that, we've put TPOs have been placed on these trees, and we just when we've been talking to the developer, we've not been able to get any access into the rear part of the site, the southern area, because of the root protection areas that surround these. Over to you, Chair.
Yeah.
Done.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Well, no, I was waiting for more, but that's so we do have some speakers. We have one to be read out by Miranda. A statement.
Thank you, Chair. This statement is from Emma Bullard from Better Shrewsbury Transport. She states, is there any need for a fuel station at this location? There are facilities within a short distance, both north and south on the A5 and on the A458 to the west. If the northwest road is built, traffic using it will either be heading from or to one of these three directions. The intention is that the NWR traffic should not use Welsh Pool Road and so will be within easy reach of services. The NWR looks increasingly unlikely due to its spiralling cost, double the 81 million estimate, record public objections and concerns from the Environment Agency over the risk of contamination to Shrewsbury's drinking water supply. If the NWR isn't built, the proposed developer contribution here will be lost. 2. There are fears about the safety of all road users at the access to this service station. Almost all its traffic, including tankers delivering fuel, will come off Churncote Island and have to wait to turn right across the westbound traffic. People on foot trying to cross towards the service station will have no controlled crossing, and cyclists may be among the traffic on Welsh Pool Road as there is no protected cycle infrastructure. There are risks to all road users, especially vulnerable ones, in a situation where traffic builds up in the middle of the road waiting to turn right. Risky manoeuvres may be undertaken by impatient drivers, lines of sight may be obscured by tankers, drivers may need to brake suddenly as they come off the roundabout. A 20-mile-per-hour zone is planned to start at Calcutta Lane, close to the service station entrance, but how many drivers will be aware of this or even see the signs, given everything else they will need to look out for at this location? The Calcutta Lane junction and the 20-mile-per-hour zone do not appear to be mentioned at all in the Development Management Report, section 6.4. 3. Better Shrewsbury Transport is aware of the proposal for a condition that the access proposal should be agreed in writing by the Planning Authority before the facility can start operating. Development Management Report, Appendix 1, Paragraph 5. However, the physical limitations described above have been obvious all along. If a safe and satisfactory access is achievable, why is it not being provided with the planning application? Serious doubts remain as to whether it is possible, but of course, if permission is given and the facility is built, a substandard access solution will then have to be approved so that trading can start. 4. The applicants acknowledge that this scheme does not meet the SUE master plan conditions in terms of either the employment opportunities or the design of the scheme. Much has changed since the master plan was drawn up, and it is time to reconsider the development of the area, which is very far from the sustainable community once envisaged. Better Shrewsbury Transport objects to this application. Either the NWR goes ahead and there is a big increase in traffic levels and high demand for these services, in which case the access is unsafe, or the NWR is refused and traffic levels are lower, in which case the services are not needed. In either case, this application should be turned down.
Thank you, Miranda, for that. Right, against we've got a Peter Anderson, who'd like to come up forward, who is the clerk to Victon Parish Council. You have 3 minutes, with like a 30-second warning. And we've got a clock now, actually, you can see for yourself. It's our first time with the clock, all right? Right-hand button. Okay.
Right. A striking gateway is emphasised more than once in the SWSU master plan. A commonplace service station can never be a striking gateway. Sustainable is a much used word, and this is the SWSUE. Petrol and diesel is being phased out, and this site will not easily accommodate the multiple electric chargers that will become necessary, so it is not sustainable. Prevention of a striking gateway. This will happen if this unsuitable development is allowed. It will prevent there from ever being a striking, sustainable gateway. This does not align with the original SWSU vision. A sign advertising the price of fuel cannot be a high quality gateway. 2 previous applications were unsuccessful on the grounds of not complying with the SWSU master plan. The promise of a sweetener of £177,000 for the Northwest Relief Road, which may not be granted planning permission, must not sway the decision. If this application is granted and the £177,000 is accepted, the man in the street will assume a connection between the two. The Shropshire Council Planning Officer's conclusion is that this application must be determined in accordance with the master plan, and on balance, this does not provide what was envisaged in the master plan. This site was envisaged as a business park. This may not seem necessary at the moment, but things will change. And if this unsuitable proposal is allowed, it will forever block the striking, sustainable gateway that Shrewsbury needs. The planning officer also states that the employment opportunities are of a lower calibre than originally envisaged. The SC planning officer's conclusion is that the SWSU master plan states, quotes, Shrewsbury West will create a distinctive high quality place which maintains and enhances the qualities and character of Shrewsbury, linking with and consolidating existing development and facilities and providing a new gateway commercial area. New, exciting and distinctive places to live, work and play will be created which do not copy older neighbourhoods and instead embrace contemporary approaches to high quality design, close quotes. This proposal does not meet this criteria and will block future possibilities. To grant permission for this unsuitable application will look to the man in the street as if Shropshire Council was swayed by the £177,000 for the NWRR.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have the next speaker, Mike Sproston, agent. Let me through, please. You have 3 minutes from the time you start speaking, and you have a clock in front of you. Okay?
This is the right hand button, yeah.
Yeah, it's off. Yeah, still on. Still on.
Oh, it's not. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon all. I'm Mike Sproston of PWA Planning, speaking on behalf of the applicant, Shelley Garages. As you're all aware, this application was heard at last month's planning committee, whereby it was deferred due to a number of queries with the application. Since the previous committee, the applicant and their consultant team have undertaken a number of works to directly tackle the questions previously raised. Firstly, I'm sure that members will be happy to see a footpath that has been added to the northern end of the site in line with the comments. This will encourage local connectivity, including the neighbouring residential development. Secondly, the applicant has committed to the delivery of public art on the northwest portion of the site. Although the design of the site in general is not a landmark office as envisioned within the master plan, the public art will serve as a local interest and supports local artists, aiding the rural to urban transition at this site. Regarding the ingress into the site, the consultant team have assessed the access from the A5, but as noted previously, National Highways have confirmed that this would be unacceptable due to safety concerns. On the left-hand only turn, previously raised within the committee, the Highways team have again considered this. The majority of vehicles will in fact turn left, but there are no additional safety benefits of restricting this at the site. The final point raised is regarding the Section 106 contributions. Eurogarages understand the political pressures for the delivery of the Northwest Relief Road, and as such, they've proposed what they believe is a suitable contribution at this site. Overall, we strongly believe that this application is well considered and addresses the questions previously raised within the previous planning committee. I therefore hope members move to approve the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Okay. Right, we can open it up to the floor. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Chair. So just to clarify, there is no agreement to index link the contribution. The applicant already thinks that they're making an adequate contribution without index linking. I think that's what the agent just said, and that seems to confirm an email that members received, where it just explains that the figure's been agreed and it's not index linked. That's what I understand from the statement just made.
Can you clarify what?
My understanding is it will be index linked.
I think the contribution that we've proposed is 80,000. So in terms of the index link, the nature of the previous sections of 106 contributions relate to a completely different site using half the site, and it's not a landmark offices. So I think 80,000 is based on what we believe is a fair figure.
So it's not index linked.
No, it's not.
No.
No.
Not index linked.
You'll be misled.
Okay.
Okay, well, that's clarified that. It appears the case officer feels he's been misled. He's understood it would be index linked, so we'll have to withdraw that part from our update.
Okay.
If I can just, sorry, I
Go on while you're on the roll.
that was the first part of what I wanted to say. Also relating to the section 106 then, I feel no political pressure on delivering the Northwest Road. Therefore, the money going towards the Northwest Road isn't a relevant consideration from my point of view, because I think the two things are separate issues. So in the email from the agent that we received, they mentioned that the calculation for the size of site now and the type of development would come to roughly £18,000. My question is, if that had been linked to inflation since 2014, it would now be worth around £23,000. Could we condition the section 106 that the £23,000 is now paid to the council, regardless of whether the Northwest Road is built or not? Because, you know, if it is or isn't, this will still have an impact on local infrastructure and other services. Therefore, I think a contribution should still be made that isn't connected. If the road goes ahead, then yeah, the full 80,000. If the road doesn't go ahead, then we should still have had 23,000 of that. Regardless, that's my proposal. I like the other. I like the fact that they've made adjustments, the footpath, and also the use of the other part of the land as a wildflower meadow, and effectively that becoming not a piece of development land. I think is also attractive if it would effectively take the rest of the site off the off as being an option for development in the future.
Can we clarify those for Mike, please?
Yeah. I think the issue around the contribution, if we go back to the Sea West, and there was it was 8.8 million allocated from various sites across the Sea West, which was part of the original Section 106 agreement, dating back in about 2013, something like that, when it was agreed by the landowners at the time. And it was quite a simplistic calculation at the time, in that employment sites were worth X, per hectare, and residential sites worth Y per hectare. And obviously this has come along now, which is slightly different, and it's a full application in itself, so it's not actually tied in with the outline consent, the original outline consent, and that's where that 80,000 came. Well, the 177,000 came from. Because obviously it's only half the site being proposed with several landowners, maybe we need to revisit this. So that's where that figure comes from. But I think the issue is that the contribution needs to be linked. It was all linked towards a contribution towards the Northwest Relief Road. So I think it's quite difficult, because to take money off an applicant unless it's actually required for something to pay off that, for that development to pay something else off or mitigate somewhere else, and that's where I think that's quite a difficult question to answer, really, because I think it's got to be linked to that development itself. In terms of the wildflower meadow, I think basically what we find now is those two trees in the middle of the site basically make the southern portion of that site undevelopable now because you can't physically get access through there. So it will remain a wildflower meadow as far as I can see, because there's no other access options at the moment for it.
Okay. Right.
Go on. Hang on. At least right. Yeah. Okay. Because one of the points that has been made is that connectivity could be better in terms of pedestrians and cyclists. So what I'm saying is that a smaller section 106 that's not dependent on the Northwest Relief Road, it could put in a pedestrian crossing for us, or it could improve a cycle path or something to enable people to access the site other than in motorised transport. So that's my thinking behind that you know, this is going to be a new development, and enabling people to get there on foot or on, you know, pedal power, I think would be an important contribution. I appreciate everything the applicant, you know, the piece of art to make it more of a gateway look inside, a section of footpath. Yeah, you know, they've made accommodations and they've answered some of our points. But I think, you know, if the Northwest Road is built and they make no contribution, then I think that is a loss to the council. If there could be a smaller contribution for, you know, say a pedestrian crossing or cycle path, I think that would be useful, and it does connect to the application.
I'm not sure if you can do that or not, can we? It's a bit late in the day. Like,
It probably is, but I think it's also, we'd have to look at the cost of that. I'm not quite certain that a contribution of 23,000 would
Do anything.
would do a great deal in terms of, I think Mark probably in a better position to sort of advise on that.
thank you, Mark.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think we've got to remember also that as part of the design process for the junction to the site, it's already been the subject of a stage 1 safety audit, which looks at, you know, vehicular, pedestrian, cycling movement. And as part of that design, it will go through a stage 2 audit, and stage 3 when it's actually built. So to some extent, some of those issues that you're talking about, I think are likely to be picked up as part of those safety considerations of the design. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mark. Gary.
Thanks, John. My question is about the wildfire meadow and the tree protection orders. At some point in the future, what's to stop the road up to the houses behind the site being used to access the wildfire meadow site if they retain ownership of it, or they sell it onto another developer for a couple of houses or something? So wouldn't it be better off with something in agreement that the council takes a lease on it from a 99-year lease or something similar, so that the wildfire meadow is kept in perpetuity for the people of that part of the county?
Mike, could you?
Yeah, I mean, something we could look at in terms of writing that into a section 106 agreement. I mean, but there is an access to the cottage at the bottom, which I presume is in the ownership of the person who owns that cottage, but it's the only access to it. So I don't perceive he would be willing to release that. But whether access comes in from the south end at some point in the future, you know, it's probably a long way down the line, but as you say, that potentially could happen. So we could certainly look at that.
Can I just ask a follow-up, Mr. Chairman?
Can I just
Yeah.
on that point? Sorry, just
Yeah.
well, that's not for consideration in this application, and it's not being put to you know, any of our people that would need to sign up to that if we were then going to take a lease. There's been absolutely no consideration of that, so it's not something we can consider as part of this application.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to add to that, I mean, of course, any land use that you're looking at the moment, councillors, you know, could always be changed in the future, but that would be subject to subsequent planning and consideration. So it isn't really the council's position to sort of lease or similar to kind of effectively sterilise land for the future, because there would always be that further planning consideration. And even if you were to write it into a section 106 now, if that came forward in the future,
And even section 106s can be amended when there are subsequent considerations if it's deemed appropriate in accordance with planning policy and material considerations at the time. So as Tabitha says, it's not for consideration now, but it isn't really possible to set things in stone forever because things change and you can consider it, but it's not on the table today.
Thank you, Miranda. Vince.
Thank you, Chair. I have to say, when this came before us I didn't share some of the concerns that other councillors had. Having said that, they were right to raise them, and I think by and large have been addressed. The North West Relief Road has been mentioned. I certainly won't be doing anything political on it. As and when and if it comes to us, it will be based on policy and design, and that's how it will be judged. I take bordering on offence at anybody who suggests otherwise, to be perfectly honest with you. I am concerned, though. I have a concern now as a result of the applicant's agent and the surprised look on officers' faces about the index linking. And I have to say, my concern now is that if that's a surprise to officers now, what else is in here that may or may not be correct or right? I don't know. And I would suggest perhaps officers may not know, because that, as I say, came as a surprise to them. That's not what they felt. I'd like an answer on that, because I've read a report. I'm expected to make a judgment on what is quite a large development. And I kind of feel the agents pulled the rug on it, and either our officers were misinformed or misinterpreted, or the speaker was. Any which way, I'm not entirely sure I wouldn't say trust, because I know that the report's been written in good faith, but is it worth the paper it's written on? If I think you get the drift.
Yeah. Mike, you got any comments on that?
My understanding has always been that this was index linked, and that's what I thought been agreed. That's all I can say. I'm very surprised by that. I've wrote that into my late items. And that's what I've understood had been agreed.
How can we continue with this then? If should we defer it until that's squared away?
Well, that's what I'm thinking. I'm just going to go to the agent for a second. Is it within your powers to index link this one? Sitting there today.
It's how you index link it. How would we work it out? It's never been put before us how it was originally worked out, kind of in the formula, and B, how we would index link that since it was signed in 2017. Our position has always been based on the trip generation. 20% trips would be new trips using half the site. Then we came up with the 18,500 figure, and then 80,000 was roughly half of the original contribution. That was how we'd worked it out and spelled it out to the letter to members and spelled it out previously.
Well, yes, but obviously the officers read it another way and they've been misled, possibly. Jeff has a comment.
Can I just suggest, we're not going to get anywhere. He said this, I said that, she said that. I agree with Vince's suggestion that we should defer this so it's clarified once and for all, because I don't think it's an acceptable suggestion to make a decision based on something that we don't believe to be factual. So I would propose that we do defer it if we can. If that's
I think the fact that the agent here is confirmed and reaffirmed, we can accept that now as the situation. So therefore, it's not index linked, and we as officers will have to withdraw that part of the update. But there's obviously been cross wires, but the agent representing the applicants is coming today and can reaffirm just now. So I think you should take that as the situation.
But I still echo Councillor Hunt's comments. What else could be not accurate in that? I don't know.
Or misunderstood.
Vince wants to come back.
But I mean, I do find I've been on this committee since 2009. I've never heard something that I thought was pucker in the first place has been subject to change, and now the agents talk me out of almost thinking that what I'm reading is correct. I'd place this on the agent's door. I mean, if it's a misinterpretation, that's as far as I'm going to go with it. But you know, is everything else in the report correct? I mean, it strikes me that we're being asked to make a decision on what's in black and white in front of us isn't necessarily.
It's got grey in it.
I can't have full confidence in it.
Right, see what Matt. Yeah, Matt.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, actually, I fully support what Councillor Hunt's saying. If we remember the Weir Hill decision, that took us 3 goes, but eventually we nailed it down. And so I think when we've got such an important and visible site, we need to get it right. And people are listening in right now, we're expecting us to get it right and not just going on information that we may or may not understand. So no, I fully agree with Vince on that.
Well, thinking of the room is a deferral to get through the information and clarify every point. Philip, Miranda, I'm looking at you for any advice you could give, because they're not confident in what's in the actual report.
So through you, Chair, members do need to act on evidence, and clearly before you today, you've heard the indexation issue raised, and that's actually been put to bed in terms of the clarity. You now have clarity on that. But you haven't got any evidence that there is any other issue with the report. So I mean, that's what I'd simply urge, just because what there has been a misunderstanding over one element doesn't mean to say that there's any other issue with the report, and you don't have any evidence before you to suggest that. That's really all I can say. But having said that, ultimately it is a matter for members to be satisfied before you make a decision.
Joyce?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Councillor Shelley for picking that up and it being highlighted to us. It shows this committee does work. Thank you.
Thank you. So, have we got a proposal on the table for deferral?
I think Councillor Elmer proposed that, and I'm quite happy to second it.
Right, Mike?
I'm not right, abstain. Vote against.
Yeah, I think there has been a misunderstanding, and it has been clarified, and I do agree with Miranda's point really that I think we could now determine it. I think the report is basically as sound as any other. A mistake has been identified, and there is no evidence that there's anything else amiss. So now that that's been clarified, I personally think we can determine this application safely today. But
thank you for that, mate. You agree with me? Right, we have a proposal on the table and a seconder, so I think we'll deal with that now. Oh, sorry, Joyce wanted to speak. I do apologise. Oh, you don't? Yes. So we have a proposal and second on the table. We shall vote on that now, and that will determine if you carry on with this debate.
Which one are we voting? The deferral, right?
Yeah, that's the proposal on the table at the moment.
Okay, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
So members, we have a proposal for deferral of this matter for further clarification. I think the reason is of the report generally, if I'm understanding what the proposer and seconder have said, and that's been proposed by Councillor Elner and seconded by Councillor Hunt. So I will now ask you if you are for or against that. Councillor Barrow.
Against.
Councillor Birchett.
Against.
Councillor Elner.
For.
Councillor Clark.
For.
Councillor Green.
For.
Councillor Hunt.
For.
Councillor Jones.
Against.
Councillor Isherwood.
against.
And Councillor Wynne.
Against.
Chair, that is 5 against and 4 in favour of that proposal, so that has fallen.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you, Mark.
Yeah, now that's fallen and that's been clarified. I mean, this site's taken 2.5 years to get to this stage. We heard what the clerk of Picton said, that it isn't the site that we thought it was going to be, but then I wanted a Ferrari when I grew up and I didn't get one either. So I think it's been, the veteran trees have been looked after. We've got the flower meadow at the top end, so half the site has only been developed. So I think we're winning a long way. And I think with the negotiation they've taken, I think Mark Wharton's done a good job on the traffic. I see National Highways didn't mention any problems either. So I vote that we pass it.
The proposal.
Propose that we pass it, yeah.
Well, back markup, I'll second it. And remember, it is an allocated site, and this is the best or the least traffic movements we're going to get, I think, from anything else that's been put forward or going to be put forward in the future. So we have Mike.
Yeah, I'd just like to also add that I think, although obviously we are wanting to move towards more sustainable transport, I think with electric car chargers, we're going to need more sites. And so hopefully within a few years, this will be an additional electric charging station rather than petrol and diesel, because I think we are going to need greater capacity for people to charge up while they're making journeys. So that's my hope for this site.
Thank you, Mike. So we've got another vote on the table and seconded. Could we have a vote on that, please?
Thank you, Chair. So this is now in favour for the proposal, with the deletion of the condition that the officer mentioned in his presentation. Councillor Barrow.
Abstain.
Councillor Birchett.
Abstain.
Councillor Elner.
I think I'll abstain as well, please.
Councillor Clark.
All go together, let's abstain.
Councillor Green.
Against.
Councillor Hunt.
Abstain for the first time ever.
Councillor Jones.
For.
Councillor Isherwood.
4.
Councillor Wynne.
4.
Chair, that is 3 in favour, 1 against and 5 abstentions, and is therefore carried.
Thank you, Amanda. That's a first, but that's been carried. Never heard. Anyway, abstentions. Never mind. Thank you. Yeah, unusual. Right, we shall move on to the next one, which is item 6. Lewis Way, Western Loading Fields. I'll fill it in. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This application is paid in full and proposes construction of a rear 2-storey and side first floor extension above the existing utility room to provide further accommodation at a dwelling known as 2 Dulles Way, Western Common, Western Northern Fields, Christchurch. There are no updates. The application is presented to committee as it is the home of a councillor. The application is for a substantial extension onto a quite a large dwelling, and the comments as made by Bash's Parish Council as set out in the report are noted. On balance, this proposal is considered acceptable owing to location of the property backing onto agricultural land and limited impacts in consideration of surrounding environment with regards to viewpoints and visual impacts. The proposal being for a first floor extension onto existing single-storey side extension and a 2-storey extension onto a rear. It is noted there are no objections from members of the public. Dimensions are set out in the officer's report in paragraph 6.21 and 6.22. Officers consider impacts on neighbouring dwellings to be acceptable. I'll now run briefly through the slides. There's the application site hatched in red. That's the proposed block plan showing the extension from the rear here, where the arrow is now, and a single story above this here, and then a link to the garage here, existing garage on site. That's the existing elevations. And there's the proposed elevations and photographs of the dwelling as it is now. This is the front elevation. Side where the single story, showing single story, and the rear. In conclusion, we saw the rear extension is considered quite large. On balance, this application is considered acceptable and in accordance with relevant policies as set out in the report, and therefore the recommendation is one of approval, subject to the conditions as set out in Appendix 1 attached to the report. That concludes my presentation on this application, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. As you know, it's a local member who's not local, it is a member of the council, that's why it's coming in front of us. So I'm quite happy to propose it from the chair that we go with the officer's recommendation. Second it. Yeah. Anybody, comments from anybody? All those in favour, show of hands. All in favour, please show. There we go. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next one, which is all exciting things now. Come to the first roundabout one. Richard's doing the roundabouts. Fire on, Richard.
Thank you, Chair. This application is one of 6 similar applications which are going to be considered this afternoon. The erection of freestanding sponsorship signs on roundabouts within Shrewsbury on behalf of Shropshire Council. Members may recall that we had similar sponsorship signs which were considered at committee in June and October last year in several of the market towns and settlements in North Shropshire. The proposed signs under consideration and in relation to this current application will be 400mm shorter in width than those previously approved. These applications should only be considered against the impact on public safety and the impact on visual amenity. This current application relates to the erection of 5 identical signs onto the Battlefield roundabout to the north of Shrewsbury, with each sign being viewed from one of the approach roads. There are no updates to this application. The current slide shows the roundabout and its location next to the Battlefield service station, the new Aldi, which has just been built to the south, and the further to the north. The left-hand image shows red dashed markers showing the position of the signs, which obviously will be viewed on the approach lanes onto the roundabout. The right-hand photograph is the sign which has already been erected on the Priest Heath roundabout, approved last year, just to give an example of the sort of appearance and of the sign. However, the proposed signs will be 400mm shorter in length than that sign shown. Next slide, please. This is the specification of the signs, showing the heights and the dimensions. Next slide, please. This is a photo montage of the sign as it would appear on the Battlefield roundabout. It hasn't been installed, it's just shown an indication of the size in context with the chevrons and the size of the roundabout, so relatively small. These various photographs from the approach roads onto the roundabout showing that it's got tree landscaping and chevron signs surrounding the roundabout. And I think that's the last slide. This application has been recommended for approval. We've had no objection from the highways manager on highway safety, and officers feel that the concerns raised regarding visual amenity and the number of signs on the roundabouts won't cause a visual impact. The application is being recommended for approval and set out to the conditions in Appendix 1 of the committee report, which does include the removal of any other signage which may be on the roundabout unauthorised. Thank you. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Richard. Do you have any comments on this roundabout signage? No, no. Joyce? Okay.
I move the recommendation.
Certainly. Okay.
Just a brief comment, if I may.
I just got a real headache with any further clutter on any roundabouts on the road. That's the only comment I've got to make, really. It's we're moving quietly to the realms of I don't know, totally beyond.
Okay. Cheers, Ted. Right, we have a proposal. Do you have a second? Then seconded. Show of hands, I think. All in favour, please show.
1, 2, 6.
Against?
3.
3. Okay. Right, move on to item 8.
This application relates to the erection of 6 signs on the Meal Brace roundabout, with each of them obviously being viewed on the approach from the traffic lights. Once again, there are no updates to this application. Approval was previously approved in 2011, which included 12 signs dotted around the roundabout and on the islands in between the road junctions. This application proposes to remove all of those, but put in 6 new signs. So there will be actually a significant reduction in what has been previously approved. If the slides, once again, very similar slides. The red dash line showing the location of them. Obviously, Meal Brace roundabout now has the road running through the site, and there have been positioned the signs by where the traffic light junctions are. Next slide, please. Once we get to specification, these slides are very much repetitive, but obviously the dimensions, and that's an aerial view of the site. This is just to indicate that although there are signs located around it, on approaching the roundabout, you'll probably only be able to see one of the signs. You're not going to see all of these 6 signs from each position. And once again, a number of photographs viewed from the approach roads, showing traffic lights, lighting columns, chevrons. So there's a number of structures and facilities. Meal Brace Retail Park is close by, and also obviously there's signage and such like in close proximity. Once again, no objection from highways. We feel there's a net benefit of less signs around the roundabout, and therefore this application has been recommended for approval, subject to the conditions attached to Appendix 1 of the committee report. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry to be paying, but I think one thing that's worth considering is the fact that we've deferred the issue of the pitch and putt development on Hazeldine Way, which is one of the access roads onto the island, while we're going ahead with this. And as I understand it, one of the concerns was the impact actually on the traffic flow around Mealbrace Island as a result of the proposals over there. Again, I'm afraid I'm sorry, I'm turning into a religious idiot, but I'm opposed to this, I'm afraid.
Thank you, Sam. Thanks.
Well, I think similarly to the last one, well, actually, no, this is better than the last one because there's a reduction. I understand Ted's concern, but it's not within the application site that the concern is related. So we have to kind of disqualify it and just take on board that he's not happy about the pitch and putt. And I get that. I'm going to move that we accept the officer's recommendation. I think there's a net bonus to there being 6 instead of 12.
Second.
Gary seconds in. Just one observation. I live by Creasish. Well, I go around that roundabout 7 times a week.
That's because you're lost.
And I've never noticed the signs yet. Just an observation. Thinking, if you drive a minute, eyes closed, obviously. Sorry, Mike.
You look at where you're going.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask though, is the council's policy to be in favour of these signs or against? Because they seem to be popping up everywhere, but on this you're selling it to us as a reduction of signs, which is a good thing.
Yes, we had a number of applications within Shrewsbury. A number of the ones we have actually as officers not supported. They've been actually withdrawn from being considered. You know, there are a number of roundabouts throughout Shrewsbury of differing sizes. Some are very prominent, some are less prominent or have more landscaping, so signs get kind of hidden on them in some respects. So, you know, I mean, we are supporting applications where we feel that the roundabouts are large, that they don't cause a visual impact, and that they are not going to cause highway safety issues. So yes, and these applications being considered this afternoon sort of warrant being on a larger site that could be supported by officers.
Thank you, Richard. But in saying that, obviously the mind thoughts changed because to start with, we were getting small roundabouts inside towns and villages and things. So yeah, I'll put hand to that. Good. So we have, yeah.
Can I just add?
No, it's me first.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm not so happy about this one. This is a roundabout you have to concentrate to get round it, and it takes you everywhere, doesn't it? So I'm not keen on this one. I'd be against this one.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to just add, we have had numerous inquiries because they're council led, and the ones that we're not supporting, we feel we can't support at officer level, they're withdrawing them.
Right.
So it isn't that every application we're automatically recommending approval to, because that's not the case.
No, that's Richard's step. Mike.
But this one in particular will result in half the number of signs as there are actually existing. So it would be a reduction in the number on this roundabout.
Yes, that's
and
correct.
if we don't approve it, the existing 12 will remain.
Yes, that's correct, yes.
Thank you. Okay, proposal seconded.
You can do a show of hands so you can see everybody.
We just show what we can see. Show of hands. All those in favour, please show.
1, 2, 3, 5, 6, Chair.
Against?
3.
Good.
6, 4, 3 against.
Thank you very much. Right, moving on to lost which one's
Number 9.
number 9 now. Thank you.
50 yards down the road.
This application relates to 4 signs on the roundabout, on the Sutton Park roundabout. Once again, with each sign being visible on the approach road. There are no updates onto this application either. The main A road goes across the roundabout with a north and south spur serving 2 residential estates. Next slide, please. Once again, simple. The plan shows the position of the signs and the example of what's already been erected locally. Next slide. Specification sheet showing the dimensions and the roundabout showing tree landscaping within the centre, which obviously will prevent all the signs being viewed as you approach the roundabout. You will only be able to visually see 1 sign at any one time. Thank you. This application has been recommended for approval, subject to the conditions set out in Appendix 1.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard. Move. Thank you. Mike?
Are there signs on this one existing?
Yes, there are. There are 3 signs that were approved historically back in 2011. This obviously application is proposing 1 additional sign on the roundabout.
Okay. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mark. I've got a second. No comments. We'll go straight to the vote. All in favour of this application, please show.
6.
Again. 3. Okay. Moving on to item 10.
This application is for 3 signs once again on the Telford Way roundabout by the golf driving range. Once again, all can be viewed on the approach roads. Amendments were received during the consideration of this application to remove 1 of the proposed signs, which would have been viewed from Underdale Road, the estate to the west of the main A road. This has been in line with the previous approval back in 2011. Officers felt that it didn't necessitate having 4 on this slightly smaller roundabout, although the roundabout was still considered large enough for the 3 replacement signs. There are no updates to this application either. And if Philip can go just through the slides once again, approach roads, the left-hand access lane onto the roundabout, we removed the sign from there. Next slide, specification sheet slide once again, and showing tree landscaping and the chevrons around the roundabout. So this is basically replacing the 3 signs that are already on the roundabout. This application has been recommended for approval subject to the conditions in Appendix 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Right, move. Second, Vince. No comments. All those in favour, please show.
6.
Against? 3. Okay, moving on to states 11.
This application is for 3 signs once again, approach viewed from the approach roads to the roundabout. Amendments were also made during the consideration of this application to remove 1 of the signs facing the approach road from Crowmore Estate to the east. This is once again in line with the previous approved layout, which approved 3 signs. So the red dashed lines indicate the signs in their position where they are currently, and obviously they will be replaced with this new signage. Once again, there are no updates to the application. And the next slide will just show the specification, and the following slide just shows the landscaping in the middle with the signs which will be located between the chevron signs. You may be able to briefly see the small signs on those photographs, which are quite small. Application has been recommended for approval subject to the conditions in Appendix 1 of the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Move.
Yeah.
Move. No comments. All those in favour? Your recommendation. Can we have a guess? Right, for against. Thank you. Item 12, moving on.
Final one, application for 4 pounds on each of the approach light roads onto the roundabout. There have been no updates to this application, and the slides will show the location of the roundabout with 4 main A roads. One obviously road leading towards Shrewsbury, the one up to the monument roundabout. Next slide, please. Showing them on the approach roads. So once again, just quickly go through the slides, the specification sheet, showing the dimensions. Next slide. And photographs once again showing tree landscaping in the centre. This is also quite one of the larger roundabouts that the signs are being proposed on. No updates, and recommend the conditions set out in Appendix 1 of the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
It's enough comment, but that's what I'm here for, isn't it? The chevrons are not going to be removed. The chevron signs that are going round on each of them, I'd make an assumption that they'd be retained.
Yeah, all of the existing chevron signs, highway signage, directional signs will remain on the roundabouts. So the actual sponsorship signs will be located in between them. We have a condition being proposed on all of the applications, which will agree the exact position of the sign to allow that adequate space for maintaining the roundabout can be provided, and to assess whether any existing signs need to be removed. Thank you.
Thanks.
Just something that caught my eye then as we go through the slides, apart from hands-on health, which are either spending a lot of money or changing around a bit because it's getting a bit boring towards the end. I'm sure they're doing a wonderful job. It was adverse. Does that mean that the new signage is already in place?
No, it's not a retrospective application. The previous application was approved in 2011, which I think was granted for 5 years at the time. That lapsed. It wasn't renewed. Right. However, right. The signage has been replaced. Yeah.
Right, that will move again.
Second.
Joyce. Right, I've got one. Thank you, Joyce. But thank you very much. Right, no comments. All those in favour, please show.
Thanks.
Against. Great. Thank you very much. Right, moving on to appeals and appeals decisions. Right, okay, we'll move on. We'll move on to something.
You want me to comment?
I did. That's your comment. Go on, mate.
They are as they are. They're there for you all to read. Please read them carefully. And I have nothing further to add. And that includes the cost applications, which actually were all, I must hasten to add, one appeal all combined into one, because they're all concerned with the same agricultural unit.
Thank you, Mark.
Could I ask roughly what those costs were, Philip?
I wouldn't have a clue. I've had no communication yet. We've only very recently got, they're actually published the day they came in, they were published next day onto your, so they very nearly would have, if they come a day later, they'd be on next month.
Is there a ballpark figure?
I wouldn't have a clue, but they'll.
Yes, Miranda might just step in.
Through you, Chair, the way it works is that when you get a cost decision, it's a simple decision to pay the cost, but they then subsequently either agreed or assessed. So there is no figure yet at all. The inspector doesn't decide a figure.
Okay.
Thank you. Before we move on to the next phase of the meeting, Taylor's going to put a little suggestion to us.
It's live streaming.
Okay. Before we do that, the date of the next meeting is on the 20th of June.